G'day and welcome back to Down the Shed with Byron, where we turn this nugget of a Hyundai Elantra into a demolition derby car. Yep, that's right, a demo derby car. Now, if you've seen Demolition Derby at your local speedway, oh, it's so much fun with your pants on, I'm telling you. But how do you build the car? Now, the hardest part I've found is bloody finding one or getting it cheap enough to actually have a crack at it. Now, because I have a little bit of time every now and then, you know, what I do is I buy the car for around the $400 to $500 mark. Best is obviously if you can get it for free. And then I wreck it. The only problem with wrecking it is you get the Muppets that say, yeah, I'm coming around for the tailgate. I'm coming around for the back door. I'm coming around for the front guard. And they don't rock up. But anyway, I've made enough pocket money off of this to classify it as a free car, so let's smash it up. Now obviously, depending on where you're located, make sure you get the rules from the local speedway of how to build the derby car, because there's different specs, and I've also noticed on the old Facebook that there's different bar work that people are putting in, so just double check. And it doesn't hurt, and it might get a bit annoying, but message old mate that's running the show and ask them, because it doesn't hurt. Now, to the rules list. In most cases, it's all the ones I've entered have been 4 cylinders only. Now, I read the rules wrong the first time I ever entered, and it said 1.8 or less. And I rock up and there's 2.6s and there's 2 litres and there's etc. So just make sure you got the most current rules you've got. So in our case, it's all vehicles must be standard condition except for modifications. And we can have 2.2 litre or less, because I'm entering the Mount Barker Demolition Derby, which is south of Perth, just down the road. So in our case, front wheel drive, and we've got a 2 litre, so we're well within those limits. Our next section of the rules is it tells you what cars they recommend. Now, if you're not sure, e.g. Hyundai Elantra, message old mate, email him, hey bro, is this cool to use? And they'll literally just say, yeah, no worries, mate. All right, next thing is passengers aren't allowed in this derby, so that's easy. Your diff in your gearbox needs to be an open wheeler, not welded up or an LSD. Again, who goes to that much effort to make a front wheel drive LSD? Anyway, we're not going to worry about it. Tyres and wheels. Now I'll show you a little trick with this one, and something that will help you out, because I got pulled up in scrutineering for this and it was my own bad. And what they're talking about is to remove any of these wheel weights. Now, if your alloy rim's got those stick-on ones, it doesn't hurt to scrape them off, but use a pair of pliers and just pry that off. That way you've got no wheel weights on your wheels when you rock up, inside and outside. So yeah, I just use a pair of multi grips, try and grip it and wiggle it off. That's how simple that is. So now we can use this wheel. Hold on, let's just double check on the inside. There's no weight, no. And also, if your car's front wheel drive, you want to be using something that's got plenty of tread, because grip is kind of important when you cruise around on that track after they've wet it down. So put your skiddies on the back and the grippiest ones you've got on the front. Now, with a few more things ticked off, moving on to stripping it basically, which is removing anything breakable. Headlights, glass, plastics. Now, what I like to do is go a little bit overboard. I don't know if you guys out there like the idea as well, but I remove all plastic bumper bars, any of that stupid trimming off the side, and just make it so there's not one bit of plastic that can be left on the track. Because at the end of the day, those people that are cleaning up the track, if you make it as easy as possible, they're going to call us up and go, oi, we want you to come back for another derby. Now, one more rule before we get into stripping. You thinking what I'm thinking? Anyway, nah, you got to make sure you use bolts with nuts, washers, etc. Can't use tech screws to hold anything together. And again, you think about that. We're out on the racetrack, you use a tech screw, it happens to come out. Those poor blokes that spend thousands of bucks on tyres on their speedway car get a puncture because of our tech screw. where you could have just put a 6mm bolt, an 8mm bolt, etc. in. It's courtesy, I reckon, because we're chewing up the track, making a mess. The grader comes along, that's all it needs. So to me, that's very important, making sure you just use nuts and bolts. Now I'll show you later how I try and focus on those nuts and bolts and how we assemble them. Now it's time to get stuck into the stripping of it, and I've got my mate Daz. There's nothing like having a mate over. How you going, mate?
Good, mate. Yourself?
So Daz is from his own little YouTube channel, Tips and Adventures. What tip have you got to give us today, mate?
Mate, there's no tips in building Demolition Derby Car, just rip it apart. Smash, destroy. Yeah, smash and destroy, smash beers with a mate. So the best part about derby car building is when you get involved with a mate and turn the beats up, just strip the car, get it happening, and that's the best part of it. So let's get into it, eh? Yeah, man. Righto. Good work, mate. Good work. Gives a thumbs up. Whoo boy. Well, I am slightly knackered today. We've got a few more jobs to do to strip it, but otherwise that's pretty much the basics. Like obviously you don't have to take guards off, you don't have to take doors off of that. That's because I was meant to sell them and the person didn't rock up. But that's okay, we'll sort that out later. I like to take the dashboards out, but again, it's up to you. To cut the windscreens out, I use a variety of different tools, and I reckon these things are bloody useless, but I use a few scrapers that are sharpened up. And I've got another scraper here that I've made into a bit of a homemade chisel slash blade, and then I've got given this from AAA Windows. So that was handy as. I also use a bit of CRC just around the rubber to assist with cutting it. So make sure you're wearing safety gear while doing that, because it's just one of those things, you get that point and you go whoop, and your knuckles, it's not the cutting it or anything, it's hitting your knuckles on sharp edges. So like when you're pulling back and smashing. So that's something to be aware of. And with a general bit of a vacuum out, it's pretty tidy for now. Another thing to think of is there was a couple of brackets that go, one there and there was one here. So what you got to think of is when you're sitting in the car, what your leg can actually hit. So I'll probably end up trimming this bit of the bracket off, just in case a leg goes across, you don't want any sharp edges to hit. Another safety thing we'll need to sort out is removing airbags. So we'll pop that one off later, I'll show you that. We'll get the seat back in there, eh, big little fella? Yeah. And then, just got to pull these lights and badges off. You can badge that, you get your scraper, mate. You can rip that off. Righto, you show them how to get it off. You've forgotten your gloves. Eh? You're going to try and save it? Or you're just going to rip it off? Strip it off. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I'm just going to put the lock assemblies back in, because if any of you guys watched my Motorplex Demolition Derby with an Elantra. I had someone literally drive into the passenger door and it tore it straight off of here. For some reason, like, it looks like a big bit of steel there, but it's not. It's just that little bit of steel holding it. So we'll put the lock assembly back in, and I'm actually going to strap that around there later. A couple of things to think about saving. Some seat belts out of the build. I also put all the nuts and bolts and little brackets to the side, because you never know when you might be able to reuse some of these kind of things. Well, I'm back into it today, and just going back through the checklist that we've got. Basically, it says all mouldings, headlights, tail lights, badges must be removed. I think we've done a pretty good job at that. All glass must be removed properly, which we've done. We accidentally broke one, but we've cleaned that up. The floor carpet and roof lining needs to be all stripped out. Pretty self-explanatory. Remove bits and pieces. It's just cardboard and a bit of felt. It rips down. I removed the interior light, just get it out the way. So there's no loose objects inside the car. So just think, when you get hit from the side or from the back or whatever, you don't want anything just flying across the car. So yeah, we've shown you that, how it's all cleaned out. The next part that's not actually mentioned on this checklist is the airbags. Now imagine you've run up the back of someone in an actual accident, the airbag goes off, it's there to save your life. But in a derby, you don't want that going off in your face. So we're going to remove them now. And all cars are different in this scenario. In this Hyundai, we've got two. So you've got the driver's side and the passenger side. Start off by disconnecting your battery, which we've got done there. Now to the inside of the car. Depress it. Just if there's any stored energy, capacitors, etc., whatever that electrical terms are called, hopefully you've de-energized it. There's also one underneath here, which is a few bolts. We'll have a look at that one later. And this is one reason why I just pull the whole dash out, because there's about half a dozen bolts that hold it in place, and then it all comes out. So with a bit of rip, tear, bust, you can pull that out. So with the driver's side, again, every vehicle's different. This has got a couple of little caps on each side. So there's one there and one there. So we've got a Torx bit just in there, and a lot of cars have got security Torx tips. I'll show you what one of those tools is now. So your standard style Torx tips, just like that, just stars. And the security ones have literally got the hole in the end. So you may have to borrow a set of those off a mate, or if you've got some. So in our case, we've got one on each side. We'll just pull them off now, and that should come off. There we go, we've got those screws out. Now to disconnecting the plug. Now these have got like a little safety clip. So that pulls out, and then this should wriggle out. Because I've got you on camera, it won't work now. There we go. All right, so that's out. And with the airbags, dispose of them in the correct manner, which I'm going to save them, because if you guys follow me on YouTube, we did a video with How Ridiculous, and they did some airbag cannons. So I actually want to save them and donate them to those guys. So if we get a heap up, they might be using them in one of their future videos. So now, with the rest of the steering wheel, I'll literally unplug it from back down here and get that all out of the way, and probably just tidy this up, because the potential for when you get hit in the steering, that can spin on you. So you can either fill this up with a cushion, duct tape it, or just keep your thumbs out of the line of fire, getting smashed with that. Right, let's go on to the passenger side. On the passenger side now, just under here is our airbag, oh, there we go, airbag assembly. So what it looks like, a couple of bolts are here I've taken out, a couple more up in here on each side. So I'll just remove those and pull that out. And just remember that when pulling these out, be cautious, because yeah, they can go off, but normally they go off when you've got electronic signal to them. And if you're not confident with it, hit up a mate that's a mechanic that plays with them, well, has had a go at them, get him to come around and, you know, throw them something cold out of the fridge. Righto, let's rip that out now, and then I'll move on to the next part of the list. And now I've got it out, I'll show you
Now, again, they're all different. This ended up having another 3 nuts here. So this is the airbag assembly that comes out. There's your airbag. That's pretty much it. So we've got those out. Put that in a pile over here. And yeah, you can see the dashes out. Because I got a little bit frustrated being upside down under there and just went yoink. Now we'll move on to the next part of the rules. So it's got the metal fabrication side now, but I'm just going to skip over that and we'll move on to the continuation of the stripping of it. Now it says the radiator needs to be in the original location, obviously in the front here, but you can move the engine cooling fans. So I've done that. Now this is completely up to you if you want to do that, but most of the time, how long does a derby last for? And that's just one less thing to go wrong. So if you remove it, again, it's up to you. The next part is the fuel tank. Now, in the Elantra, it's in the middle, just underneath the back seat. So I think that's okay. If it was underneath the spare wheel at the back there, where you're going to cop a few hits, yeah, I'd move it. So a lot of people use jerry can systems where they put a jerry can at the back here and run a little pump or a little bit of hosing. So you can do that, but you need to have, I think it was less than 1 metre, I'll put it down the bottom just in case, of hosing. So that way there's not too much exposed inside the car. The next thing it says is all tow bars need to be removed. So this Elantra's got a tow bar on it, so I'll rip that off as well. Now you can, so check out that box tube. You could probably repurpose that because it's pretty heavy duty and turn that into something that goes from the floor to the roof, but we'll talk about that later. Now we've covered the radiator, fuel tank systems. The next thing it does mention is the battery. So you can leave it in its original position. You have to think about the first hit you sort of take, maybe second hit. So depending on your confidence, relocating it is what they'd advise and putting it onto the passenger side floor. Cool. So what I'll show you there is how I've done it and what you can do to mount it on the floor there. Well, here we go. Ran out of MIG wire on me MIG welder and had to go to the stick welder, but she looks good enough. So this is the final product of what I'm trying to achieve. So bit of angle line, 320 long for these inside ones, 190, 190, and then I found some random bolts that I had in my collection of bolts. I cut the heads off and then just welded them inside there. Now what we'll do is you put a bit of rubber inside here to support the battery. Now the battery slots in, and then what I've done, I just got a bit of angle line, pushed it against there, and then transferred the marks and just winged it, and funny enough, got it right. So now that slots over. Obviously we'd put a bit of rubber just under here, and then you tighten that down with a couple of nuts, and that's your battery tray made up. What I'll do is I'll put a photo up with the measurements. Now it's just how I've made it, and thanks to me mate Hayden for giving me that idea. Because I was trying to make everything too precise, where it's just like cut, slap it together. Works well. So that's probably taken me about an hour to make, and what we'll do now is we'll work out where to locate it on the floor here, because you've got to look underneath the car. Now, if anyone's done this, let me know in the comments. Put a bloody love art or something. But how many people have drilled through the floor and hit a fuel line? So that's pretty much a happy spot for the battery to live. I have mounted them where the seat goes normally as well. So if you use the same type of car in every derby, all you've got to do is unbolt, comes out, put it back in. So what we do, roughly, let's have a look. Let's push that
tight to there. Let's have a look underneath. So there we go. We've got in that plastic cover a couple of fuel lines. So there's a grommet there. So what we might do is we'll pop that out, and then that gives us a reference point of where we can drill there. And then we've obviously got the chassis rail here. So it might be worth turning that battery tray from there around that way. So we can use a bolt through here and here. But yeah, what else you can do is I've used a little drill bit and just drill from under the car up, and then that way you know that's where your fuel line is. And with that all said and done, whew, got to get another one into me. But I'm hoping you guys are enjoying the video. If there's anything I've forgotten or I haven't put in there and feel like sharing, throw it in the comments. But yeah, we've spun that battery box around. I drew a reference line of where those fuel lines went. Literally just scraped that in, drilled these, and then I found some random bolts in that nuts and bolts pile. And then just used some big panel washers, which you can get from your local suspension shop, because a lot of these just get thrown out. So these are just old shock absorber bolt washers, sorry. And then I've just used nylock nuts. Now when it comes to the battery cabling on this Hyundai, the earth cable that goes on the inside of the chassis here. So that's just your earth cable that goes to the chassis. I'm just unscrewing that. And then we'll connect that somewhere. And the actual engine to chassis earth strap is just there, so that's all good. Now obviously you want to clean up all these terminals the best you can, and even these contact areas here, make sure they're nice and clean. But there we go, we can just attach that straight to there, which that's attached to the body. And that's pretty much earth sorted, so we don't have to buy a cable or anything for that one. That's earth sorted. Now the positive. Now with the positive terminal, I've just unbolted all the fuse box and pulled that up and undone the main nut here, attached a wire, a bit of scrap cable that I had, which will be good enough to start this thing. And what we can do is cut that lug off now, and then that runs through and down to the battery. And what you can do to make it a bit easier is drill a hole through the firewall and just thread it through. But whatever you do, once you're confident and you're happy with what you've done here, make sure you tape that up. And then I use a bit of old radiator hose, and then I wrap that section up and then tape it again for the just in case, because you don't want that rubbing out on something and earthing and blowing up your battery. So that's pretty much the battery if you'd like to relocate it. And that's what I like to do, just throw it into there. And it's a cheap option. If you've got some scrap cars kicking around, you find the other battery lead that goes to the starter motor, you can use that as your extension. All right, moving on. Another safety feature that you need to make sure you've got sorted is your seat belt. Now you can use the original seat belt as long as it's not frayed or torn or anything, and as long as it's secured securely. So we had to remove that obviously to get the plastic trim off, and then yeah, just a few duggers to put it back on, but making sure that your seat belt's in good condition. And you can use a 4-point harness or a 5-point harness if you want to. But what I find with those is they're really good if you're doing a Ford Derby, because it holds you in nice and tight, and you're only going forwards. Now, when you try and turn to go in reverse, that seatbelt's obviously holding you. So it's up to you. You can pick them up relatively cheap from the Speedway boys, because once they run out of date, they have to get rid of them, but for the Demolition Derby, it's okay. Another thing, which I probably should have suggested straight up, is to make sure you got brakes. That's another must you have for the Derby. I know it doesn't sound right having to have brakes, but yeah, you do need to stop. So tomorrow I'll get stuck into a bit of that bar work and show you how I build it, and then we'll go from there. Alrighty then, now we're on to the bar work. Now this is pretty critical for side impact or rollover. They request that you use 38mm tube, outside diameter, by about 3mm thick, to go from B pillar to B pillar, or you can go back door to back door, but I'll show you why I like to go pillar to pillar. Then floor to roof. Now I try and put this bar directly behind the driver's seat, because if it turns into a reverse derby, when you turn sideways to try and have a look, you've got a bar in the way, or you've got the potential, depending on your car, If you get hit from the side, your head can, you know, potentially hit it. So if you've got the pole behind your seat, I reckon that's the go. Now to mount these bars in place, you need to use a minimum of 6mm plate, and it needs to be 100mm by 100mm. Now again, I overkill this and make them bigger and etc. And they have to be bolted in. It can't just be welded to the car. Now I like to use 10mm bolts for this scenario because you send the rattle gun on it, tightens it up, and yeah. All right, I'll show you what we get into. Righto, I reckon first step is you've got to get into the car and set up the seat in your comfortable position for driving. And have a think about like side impact and make sure your arms are folded for, you know, forward impacts, etc. Now I'm building this car for a mate, so I'm just having a bit of a guess of roughly where he should be located. So that should be right. Now having a look at the back of the driver's seat, you can see the B-pillar, you're right in line with it. So technically we could go straight off the back door to back door. I don't like doing this because I've been accidentally hit in that driver's side door, which there's not much protection in this back door. And what happened is all this floor and B-pillar collapsed into the seat. So you just picture you're sitting in here and that's come in 3 or 4 inches. So what I like to do is mount my bar off the B-pillar. So what I do is I get a plate that's longer and mount it up. So now I've got plenty of room to put my tube. Then what I do is I remove the rear door hinge, the top one, because to me, that's probably the most structural and strongest part of this B-pillar. So yeah, just remove that hinge out of the way. Then I run the drill bit through all the way so it penetrates through to this side. Obviously take your seatbelt out so you don't go bloody putting a hole in that. Once I have my drill bit all the way through, I'll just obviously push it back a bit. I'll hold my plate roughly in position of where I'm happy with it. Give it a little drill so it gives me a bit of a mark. And then I'll transfer the hinge to the plate. Now with the hinge, I'll just line it up roughly and then move it down so it's pretty much square. Mark a couple of holes. And what we'll do, we'll drill them out and then we'll bolt them to the sides. All right, now with these center punched, start off with a couple of small drill bits to start off with, just to build your way up to 10mm, 11mm. And now because this hinge is pretty much lined up, I'm just gonna bolt 2 plates together and drill through both. That way we've got one for each side. Yeah, let's get into it. Oh, another little tip, use a little bit of cutting compound, which will help, or some CRC or WD-40. And yeah, take it easy. There we go. That's that plate bolted into place. Like I was saying, I reckon that's more than over-engineered-ish because you're going through the B-pillar, which is held by the door hinge, etc. So now you've got that all nice and firm, not too tight for now. What we'll do is we'll measure from the inside of this plate to that one, and then we'll cut our bar up. All right, let's see if my measurements are right. Now, thanks to Safety Grandpa, me dad, he sorted us out a couple of G-clamps last time he was here. Oh, I got it right. Maybe. So now what we do is literally just weld that into place wherever you feel comfortable. So I ran out of MIG wire yesterday, so I'll tack weld it in place with the stick for now. Righto, Safety Grandpa, if you're watching, turn away now. So I had a crack at welding in the bar work with the stick welder. Yeah, she'll be right. But you can see what I'm talking about, how now you've got the seat onto the back there. If you actually put it into that back door, which I'll walk around and show you now, you can see the B-pillar about there, the bar work would be about there. So if you went bar work back into this door, all you're running on is door skin. In some cases, in different cars, you've got two skins, and then this intrusion bar, I think it's called. So you can sort of clamp around that, but I reckon that's the go there. The next thing I'll do here is I'll put a gusset in there, so a bit of a triangle from here across to where the bolts are, so that acts as a bit more strength as well. I've just pre-drilled and done the plates for the bottom and for the roof. So, and then I've measured from the bottom up to the top and hopefully got it cut right. With the bolting of that, I've put big panel washers underneath, and when I get to the point of bolting this top section up, I'll use some panel washers to hold it in place. You can also use a bit of flat bar. You can just put a bit of flat bar across there and drill 2 holes. But yeah, I'll pull that out now, or I'll grind it up, pull that out, weld it up, and then we'll bolt that in. And there we go, bar work's pretty much done. So as you can see, panel washers, just tighten the crap out of it. Tightened it up down there, it's all sorted. Just got to cut the excess thread off. Now it does say in the rules not to use galvanized tubing. I don't know why you would, but this was pretty cheap. I think it ended up costing me about $11 a meter, maybe. I'll double check and I'll let you know after, but I think I used 3 meters of steel. Now, the next part we need to move on to is the steel plate that needs to go in the door. Now, I like to measure this from about inside that window channel. I get the grinder and actually cut that, and I go to about here for the steel plate. Then, for the height-wise, you need to have it so it's underneath that lip, there. But the problem you've got is, well, in some cars, the back of the door comes up, so just remember that. So we want that steel plate to come into there and protect us. And what I'll do is we'll measure that up and see what I've got. Now we need about 900 long by about 580 high. Now this steel plate needs to be a minimum of about 6 mil. The easiest way I found to source this was to go down to the local scrapyard where you got the old blokes out the back there and the oxys cutting it all up. And you ask nicely and give them the measurements, and sometimes they'll hook a brother up. So I'd like to thank Ozcon, because these guys hooked me up with a couple of steel plates that I need. But that's all I do, and it ends up costing about 10 or 20 bucks, $1 a kilo, something around that. But that's the best way I found to get that plate. But yeah, I've got a couple. We'll cut one up and slot it in. Alright, well that's steel plate in. I'm happy with that. That's underneath that section there. What do you call it? The windscreen section. I'll think of it in a minute. But what I'll do from here is I'll drill holes through the door and that plate and bolt it all together. So that way it holds the plate inside the door and holds it from popping back out. With the steel plate inside the door now, not protruding the door skin. Oh, stuffed yesterday. I've ended up using some G-clamps to crush the outer skin to the inner skin, and with some random bolts I had out of my nuts and bolts bucket, I put a panel washer, or the biggest washer I could find at the time, on the inside, and I've bolted them together. So now they're done up tight, that steel plate isn't going anywhere. And then what we'll do is this top section, I'll peen that over with the hammer so it's nice and smooth. I might even throw a little weld there, but that'll be that done. I end up putting the window regulator back in to strengthen up the inside of the door skin. So My mate should be pretty safe there. I then continued on and finished off all the bar work. And that's that gusset I was talking about putting in. So I've put one on each side. Now it's pretty easy for the triangle. All I've done was measure roughly from the seat across, and then measured from there to there, and then just made me triangle. So that should be well and truly good enough. With the seat belt back in, the next stage is it's advised on the paperwork to put mesh in the front windscreen, but it's not written there saying about putting mesh in the side. Now the reason they want it in the side for is so if you roll over or you get hit, your arm doesn't come out. So yeah, I totally agree on that one. So what I did, I've got some old angle line. I sat it on top of the window channel, roughly where I wanted it. A couple of marks on each side, grinded it and cut it out. So the best way would be a bit of flat bar really, some half decent flat bar, 3mm. And then I've just used out of those tray of nuts and bolts, a couple of bolts to bolt it into place. And with a sheet of mesh, I've just measured that up. And yeah, you get the idea. We'll be able to give that a couple of tack welds into place. And with the excess stuff I had, I gave it a couple of measurements. We should be able to make that fit there somehow. Yeah, I think something around like that. You get the idea. And with the power of YouTube, that mesh is welded all in and bolted. So that'll be all right. I've just gone through the car one last time and given it another bit of a vacuum out, bit of a clean out, because now we're up to the scenario of welding the door shut. Now this has to be done every 300mm. So I just literally start in the corner here with the ruler, 300, 300, 300, and continue all the way around. Now, if you get a section that you've got a bit of a gap or something like that, what I do is I use an old bolt, cut the head off it, jam it in there, and then weld each side of it. The next scenario is we need to either chain or strap the doors closed to prevent them from coming open. Now, it doesn't actually say in the rules about doing the doors, but I know they want it. So what I'll do once that's welded, we'll put a chain around here. And what I like about using chain, especially on the driver's door, is I feel more secure with that. Anything to do with the back, you can use chain if you want to, or a cheap alternative is seat belts. Now what I've done here is I've loosely bolted it where the seat belt mechanism was. Then I've wrapped it around 3 times, as you can see there, and then I've tied it back with heaps of knots and then I've just tightened that bolt up. So now what that's done is it's created a nice tight section. But if you are going to use seat belts, just be aware of sharp edges, because that'll cut through. So I've panel beaded that all down so it's nice and smooth each side, and use the seat belts. So you can get away with using seat belts. You can do the same with each door if you want to. But with chains, you can chain it, shackle it, chain it and bolt it. So it's completely up to you. But the good thing about the seat belts is they're free. You've got a few spare ones in the car as you strip it. So with the 2 straps on either side, I've just thrown one through the tail lights, back through the boot section. So as we get hit in the back, hopefully it holds it in that position and caves it in. Now moving around to the bonnet. Now to securing the bonnet, to stop it from flying up and etc. There's a couple of ways you can do this. Get the grinder, cut across into it, smash that with a hammer, and then you can run your strap or chain through there, or you can use a hole saw and punch a hole through it. Now there's lots of different theories of how you can do this. I've seen different theories where the chains come up and across and into a triangle, so it's secured back at the firewall. I've seen it where you've got the strap that comes around, back around the radiator support. I've seen it where you've got from there back around the guard. I've also seen it where it comes through the bonnet down to the chassis rail and back up, and it just depends on your theory of engineering. Now you can use seat belts for this scenario, but with the high impact of this area, I I'd probably stay at chains. But if you have used seat belts, let us know how you went. All right, so I've got the bonnet to secure, the door to weld up, and obviously the doors just to throw a strap around each one. But we're pretty much there. So I'll get back to you once we've got that door welded up and some other bits and pieces done. So hang tight and we'll get into it again. Oh, there we go. So it's all welded up. I've got the mesh in there. That's good enough. That's not going to go anywhere. His arm shouldn't fly out. I've chained it up for that door and the back door. What else did I do? I've also used another seat belt back around here and got a little bit creative. So this is a center seat belt. Just used the latch and the other tight end section, and it actually worked out that it'd bolt together nice and neat there. Another idea you can use is old tie down straps or fraz straps. So what I done there, I pulled it back out in a half and then kept wrapping it around till I got to the inside and then just tied a few knots. Now I have a feeling we might have to run some duct tape around that, but I'll find out later. But that ain't going anywhere. So just back to the driver's door. So I've stitch welded it every 300mm, right? And I've just had a look over the rules again, which say the driver's door and offside passenger door, the door behind the driver, are to be stitch welded every 300mm. So what I'll do is I'll just weld up that back door now and I'll show you what I've done. And there we go. With the power of YouTube, that door's welded up as well. So yeah, when you get to that part, it's driver's door and back door. And then I just ended up running the seat belt back around here. That'll be good enough. Now we're back up to double checking the rules and designing what paint job you want to do your car in. Because there's prizes for best presented. So just have a think about what the kids are going to squeal for. Because I unfortunately lost a derby. Well, no, he won. I lost to a unicorn because everyone screamed louder for that one, even though my car had no forward gears after that. But we won't worry about that one, all right? So yeah, just go back through all the rules, double check with yourself. If you're not sure, call up the organiser of the place. The other good thing is if you do this with a few mates, you know, you can bounce off each other. Oh, how'd you do that, bruz? Yeah, cool. And then you can use ideas from other people. And my very first derby, I had no idea and just got out there and had a go. You learn once you get there, and it's probably like most sports. Once you kick the ball the first time, you keep practicing, you get it right the next time. So make sure your engine is up to spec. Change oil filter, well, top it up, throw some coolant in it, make sure your gearbox oil or transmission oil's spot on. Have a fully charged battery the night before, so you're good to go. Disconnect the earth, put it on just before the derby. What else is there? Number one rule is make sure you got some fuel as well, because I may have lost my last derby by not topping up fuel. Anyway, and when painting the car, just remember you need to paint a massive number on each side of the car, the same height as the door, and one on the roof. So, I don't know, your anniversary number if you remember that, or your lucky one. Also PPE, personal protective equipment for the day. You'll need a helmet in closed face, a neck brace. Now you can get these from the second-hand shop, like Cash Cities or something like that. It's a go-kart neck brace or motorbike neck brace. Overalls, steel cap boots are recommended, I think actually advised. Or long sleeve, you know, your good old work shirts that hopefully don't catch on fire. So they're things you got to think about as well. And then your nomination, and some places have a, what's it called, a day license, which is all on their, hopefully on their internet site. Otherwise, hit them up and ask again. And the idea of this video that I've just made is to help people get involved with it. Or if you are involved with it, hopefully I've showed you some cool tips that might help out. But most of your tips you're going to learn are when you're on the track. You get down there, you're like, oh bro, how'd you do that? Hey mate, how'd you do that? Or you learn from experience. My first derby to now, chalk and cheese. So if you've enjoyed the video, please give us a thumbs up. I hope I've helped you out. Otherwise, take it easy and see you when I'm looking at you.